Tired of feeling misunderstood, frustrated, and emotionally disconnected when communicating with other people? This is Conversations That Work with Anita Sandoval, where you can learn how to maintain healthy conversations with the people who matter most. A podcast where you can gain confidence and get tips for having challenging day-to-day conversations that make you feel understood, validated, and heard. Here is your host, a licensed professional counselor specializing in communication skills, strategies, and techniques, Anita Sandoval. Let's start the conversation.
Welcome, everyone. This is Anita Sandoval here with episode number 1. In today's episode, I'm going to teach you the basics about the importance of conversations and on why I chose to make a podcast about it. I'm going to help you understand what is needed to have that conversation with the people who matter the most. What is good, what is bad about conversations, and what you really need, and how to implement them in order for this to work. And lastly, I'm going to offer you a technique that I've been using for years that has helped me learn on how to move on from a person wanting to blame you and make you feel guilty for their reactions, and instead feel empowered and at peace for making your own decisions and having that conversation you always wanted to have. So stick around, because all of this is for you.
Sign up for up-to-date information and resources at conversationsatwork.org.
Hello and welcome to my first ever episode number 1 with Anita Sandoval, Conversations That Work. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about myself. I am from the Rio Grande Valley in the state of Texas, and I am an LPC, licensed professional counselor, with a private practice called Positive Awakenings Counseling Center, and I've been at my practice for over 10 years. I'm also the author of a book called Broken Chains: How to Break the Cycle from Abuse and Neglect and Go from Victim to Survivor. So now I want to talk to you on why I am here, why I decided to open a podcast. So I was you. Maybe even a person you're thinking about right now, who you're telling yourself that needs to hear this. That person that keeps saying, I am sick of this. I'm tired, I'm frustrated, and why do people keep doing this to me? And the most common question that I used to ask myself too is, why me? Why won't they understand or even listen to me? Why aren't they paying attention? Those were the common questions I had. And so, a little backstory here. Being misunderstood and, was something that I grew up in, because in my household, people weren't taught how to communicate effectively. So therefore, I didn't know how to talk and get my point across. And the way I used to talk was pretty much raising my voice, and then frustration would end up happening and I would just end up crying. So it was a constant vicious cycle that I was just fed up. So one day I decided, no más, no more, I'm done. And I decided to go ahead and get a notepad. And with the knowledge that I had, I wrote down just a rough outline on how to have a conversation. Now, just like riding a bicycle, it's not going to be pretty. And so I kept trying and had some failures, but I kept at it. I was persistent, and I finally got to where I wanted. Finally was able to come up with a framework on how to have an effective conversation with the person that mattered the most to me. And now I want to go ahead and pass this knowledge over to you so that you can go ahead and have that much needed conversation with the person you want to as well. Can you imagine that? Being able to have that conversation, having been able to get your point across, and then they actually understand you and you come up with an agreement together. So one of my greatest values in life is authenticity. And in having communication, an effective one, you can be able to let them know who you are as a person, what you believe in. And it will help others ultimately have the goal of being true to you. So you're going to talk to them, tell them a little bit of what you believe in, and then they're going to do the same thing to you. Can you just envision that? People who matter the most to you, and they know you inside who you are, not this image of who you want them to believe you are because you don't want any issues, you don't want any conflicts. So you just let them believe what they want to believe because after all, they're never going to get it. And finally, figure out who you are as well, because sometimes you've been led this path of wanting to live up to somebody else's expectations. And then what ends up happening is you forget to know who you are as a person. So even if you try to have a conversation, you really don't know where to begin because you really don't know what you want. So in creating this podcast, I'm able to help people in the community and out there listening. What is it that you believe in? You know, the goal of being true to yourself and finally figure out who you are, what you want, and where you want to go. So in this podcast, well, of course, the follow-up podcasts, I will want to give knowledge and communication, skills, strategies, techniques that you can use right now and be able to maintain a healthy conversation with people, as I mentioned, that matter the most to you. I've been able to help hundreds of people in the 10 years of practice to have that much needed conversation with the people that matter the most to them as well. And they were able to emotionally connect not only with themselves, but also with others. Me being raised in an unhealthy, broken home, as told to you, I wasn't taught the necessary skills, social skills, being able to emotionally connect. So therefore, I wasn't able to really fit in. And it was just so difficult to have connections. And at times, I ended up having superficial friends and relationships. So over time, I decided to figure out a way on how I could retrain myself to have that meaningful connection. And I'm just going back to where, the formula that I mentioned with you. And with picking up those skills, I've been able to establish successfully much needed conversations with people that are close to me. And I was able to gain not the superficial friends and relationships that I had in the past, but meaningful, true, authentic relationships with people who I know that accept me for who I am, and I accept them for who they are. That is the power of an effective communication with someone. And yes, I will be teaching you the same techniques that I use so that you too can be successful and finally feel understood. So today, I'm going to teach you something. Call it like a little quick strategy so that you can take with you. And let's think about a person wanting to have a communication, but you're wanting to have a communication with, and they keep blaming you or anybody else for their own issues. And you know that it's them being the problem, but they just somehow don't get it. So what do you say to someone that keeps making you feel like you are the problem and that it is your fault and is always blaming you for their own issue? It's 3 parts, so I'm going to go one by one with it. If you are driving, well, I suggest you replay this, but if you're not, take a pen, take a pencil, crayon even, and write this down. Because let me tell you, this works. Okay. Part 1 is having you tell them something in 3 different ways. You ready? You tell them, how is blaming me going to solve the problem? You say it in 3 different ways. Is blaming me going to solve the problem? Is blaming me going to solve the situation? And now a 3rd way. How is blaming me going to solve the issue? Or blaming me is not going to solve your problem. There's this thing of rule of 3 where if you tell them 3 different times, they kind of back off. They just want to be persistent. They're trying to get a feel, trying to jump and give that responsibility of their own problem to you. So you just have to set that boundary and tell them, yeah, nope, not my problem. I've got enough of my own. And blaming me, throwing the problem at me is not going to help you because technically, or literally, it is your problem. Okay, so that's part one. You tell them in different ways, how is blaming me going to solve the problem? Because, little note here, it will not. Okay? Blaming will never solve any problem. It's just going to heighten the problem, make it even bigger, and then everybody gets upset. So let's go ahead and move on to part two. So in part two, you say the second statement. It's unfortunate you feel that way, and I really hope you find a solution for your problem. And then in another way, remember I like to have the rule of three. You can also say, I'm more than happy to support you in your problem, to guide you in the problem. And then you can also say, I'm more than happy to help you come up with a solution. Now, nowhere in these three little phrases did I say, I am going to do for you. I am going to be responsible for you. No, you're not. Unless they're your child and they're under 18. But even then, you're supposed to help them go through their own thing. Okay? Guide them. I will not solve your problem. Let them know. I will not do for you what you can do for yourself. I will not give you the answer to your problem. This is your choice for your problem, your decision. Need to be made by you and you alone. And then you can even add in a little positivity of, you know what? And the good thing about you is you can do it. Because more than half of the time, they don't believe that they can do it. And so then they will try to let somebody else do it. So here, you're going to support them and say, hey, you know what? I believe in you. I know you can do it. And because I know you can do it, I will be here to support you, not do for you. Support. Support is where you can give them a story on what you did for the similar situation. Maybe giving them a pep talk. Maybe prompting them, asking them a question. Have you ever been through this? What do you think some solutions are? Just kind of nudging them along, knowing that they can do it.
Connect with Anita on Facebook. Facebook.com/Conversations That Work.
Okay, so that's part two. Now let's move over to part three. This part is very, very important, okay? And this part, you need to disconnect, disengage, take a timeout, meditate. I don't care what you call it. You are not their problem. I repeat, you are not their problem. Yes, easier said than done, because when you care about someone, it hurts to know that they are having problems and not being able to solve it, and you want to do for them. But if you do, all you're going to do is make them unable to go ahead and learn from it and move on and grow as a person. So you're actually harming them instead of helping them. So let me go ahead and kind of rephrase. Part one, you let them know, how is blaming me going to solve the problem? Part two, I'm more than happy to support you in your problem, guide you, and help you come up with a solution. It's unfortunate you feel that way, and I really hope you find a solution for that matter. Part three, if they're getting very upset, if you're getting flustered, I recommend you disconnect. So then when you disengage, disconnect, take a time out. It might be because maybe both of you are getting flustered, getting angry, or there's really nothing moving forward. Sometimes taking a time out, disengaging, will help calm the matter. so that when you reconnect again, you're able to have your mind clear. So one of the things you want to start telling yourself, if in case you start feeling guilty or thinking that you're responsible for that problem when in fact you're not, I want you to tell yourself, I know who I am, I know what I want, and I know where I'm going. Know what you value. Know what you need to do to get there. And that will help you with the disengaging and disconnecting to not attach yourself to the other person's problems. Okay? So I do want to add a little disclaimer here. Okay? This might not get them to stop blaming you behind your back, but it will get you to teach them that whether they blame you or not, you will not be tolerating that behavior. You will not be tolerating other people blaming you for their problems. I mean, how awesome would that feel if somebody had a problem and they would take responsibility and solve it? Pretty cool, huh? So be consistent, be committed to this strategy, because you will start seeing results and you will become aware that you are not the problem. And the other person will know, and that blaming you will not solve the problem because really, you're not going to put up with it. And so you're teaching them what conversation you want to have with them. Okay, so now that I taught you this awesome strategy that even I use, well, it's time for you to use it. Okay? So I want you to use this strategy. Try it out. Might it be perfect? Of course not. Are you going to be doubting yourself and going, oh my goodness, am I doing it right? Am I going to get the results I wanted? Well, really, to, tell you the truth, if you don't try it, you won't know. And like they say, practice makes progress. So what's the harm? Let's try it out. One of the sayings that I always like to tell people is that the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. But if you try something different, you will definitely get different results. I want to talk to you about what's coming in the near future. We're going to be talking about conversations of gossips, and I like to call it chisme, and its effects, how harmful it can be. Why conversations fail when a conversation turns into name-calling and putting down and judgment, how to handle those. A conversation without the other person being present. Maybe they're talking bad about the other person and you really like them and you don't know what to tell that person. Conversations gone bad. What is the most people fear in a conversation, and then how to overcome it. So please subscribe to this podcast and leave a comment, with the strategies that I just taught you today. Let me know how it worked. Feel free to go to my website at www.pacc-tx.com to look over this awesome strategy that I have called Rights as a Person. And in there, you will learn so many things on what rights you have and how you can implement that. Also, remember, whatever technique you learned today, feel free to comment on how awesome it was or how useful it was or how it worked out for you. Until next time, be safe, stay well. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Conversations at Work with Anita Sandoval. Know someone who needs help in having healthy conversations? Share this episode and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Until our next conversation.